here's Brody Brazil.
I've just got to make one thing quite clear here at the beginning of this video before anything else. As I'm recording, like right now, at this moment, there's only multiple reports out there which say Major League Baseball and its owners and its commissioner are pressuring Rays owner Stuart Sternberg to sell the team. At this point, that has not yet happened. However, based on the way things could go, by the time you're watching this, that might be different. I just want to state how things are right now. But also right now, there's been a lot of comparisons between the Rays franchise, where they've been, where they're at, and where things might go, in contrast to what's happened in Oakland and now Sacramento and potentially Las Vegas with the A's franchise. Yes, it does seem like the A's are a little bit ahead in this process of figuring out what the ultimate home is, and we're still not 1,000% certain on that. No groundbreaking yet in Las Vegas, but the Rays are also in a similar but different predicament. There are a lot of comparisons here. I'm not going to tell you in this video that these are identical situations, but by the end, I think what you're going to take away is that there are more similarities than differences between these two clubs, and the way they've been handled, though, that is the differentiator. Let's begin with team slogans and mottos as we start our comparison through the different elements here. They both came out with marketing campaigns of staying where they were. The A's, famously at the end of the 2010s, I think it was 2017, came out with Rooted in Oakland and new plans for a ballpark at Howard Terminal. This was about the third iteration of a different site and idea in the previous decade alone, but Rooted in Oakland. They were here to stay in Oakland. They put that on the scoreboard, on t-shirts, on lanyards, on the outfield fence. It was everywhere surrounding the A's. And with the departures of the Golden State Warriors and Oakland Raiders, the A's kind of made this very specific. It was saying it without saying it that, yeah, the other two teams left, but we're not going to leave. We are rooted. We are staying here, rooted like a tree, like the Oakland City mascot or logo of a tree, rooted in Oakland. And then the Rays, within the last year or so, came out with their own slogan, here to stay. In fact, right there, that is owner Stuart Sternberg pointing at the scoreboards which have that slogan on them. That is the debut of their marketing campaign. They had a new ballpark proposal. They were going to pitch it to the city and the county. Ultimately, the city and county approved it. Now it was just on the Rays. It kind of still is on the Rays. There's a March 31st deadline to figure out whether the baseball team is in or out on the very deal which they proposed, but which was also only approved 2 months in delay. Long story short, both teams came out with very aggressive slogans and very proud of the fact that they were not going anywhere. Now, obviously, the A's have not lived up to that slogan. Rooted in Oakland did not stand the test of time. And you'd have to think that through this process, and the reason that maybe the Rays are getting a little bit of cold feet on their St. Pete proposal, maybe it's a move to Tampa proper, like the city of Tampa and the Ybor Harbor site. And maybe here to stay just means here in the region. But also, we know that there's a group out there in Orlando, the Dreamers, that also want to capture Major League Baseball. And so maybe that's been a reason why the team has not fully committed to, again, what they proposed. So slogans that one of them didn't live up, the other one still a work in progress to see if it actually happens that way. In terms of team spending, this is the Rays here in light blue. This is the A's, obviously, in Kelly green. And inconsistent spending, in fact, for the A's, and it is, by the way, projected to go up in 2025 and beyond, largely because the A's don't want to face that grievance from the Baseball Players Association if they don't spend 1.5 times what they get in terms of a revenue-sharing check, which is about $105 million this year, a potential grievance toward the A's. So that green line is going to go up. But over time, that green line, look where it started in 2013. It's actually kind of gone down. And yes, it did go up. It almost got to $100 million. I think that was in 2018 into 19. And the Rays have obviously been a little bit more of an upward trajectory. 2020 skews everything here, but inconsistent spending, not tremendous spending. I mean, $100 million is where this tops out. If I showed you all the rest of the teams in baseball, majority of them, they wouldn't fit on this screen. They are way higher than this, in the 200s and $300 million range. So let's be clear, the proportion here, the scale of where the A's and Rays are, very low among the least spending teams on their payrolls in baseball, but there also hasn't been like an upward trajectory and commitment to the team. And again, you can win games. Like we're about to get into winning here with this next visual. Winning comes and goes, right? And the A's and Rays, in terms of their baseball side, their baseball brains and abilities and like the actual baseball part of these teams are great. They identify talent so well, even with limited budgets and not spending. Now they kind of go through those players. Look at the A's and Semien and Chapman and Olsen and Minaya and Sean Murphy and on and on and on. And yeah, I know Rays fans are still a little bit upset about Randy Arozarena, but it's kind of the same thing in both places. You cannot sustain winning. You cannot have a long period of time of winning unless you're also spending to a certain degree and not close to the league minimum like these two teams have been. But that being said, I mean, look, a couple 100-win seasons or close to it for each team. These baseball groups, not the ownership groups, not the front office, not the teams as businesses, but the baseball side of these teams have definitely overperformed. Like they each have that in common. You could say that the baseball side of these two teams have kind of saved the bacon of image and frustration of the fan base. The baseball side has largely done a lot of good things, whereas these teams in securing new homes and running a business maybe have not lived up to that same expectation. But again, the Rays have been really good in the last couple years. The A's have fallen right off the map. A 50-win season 2 years ago. Then they upped it by 18, 19 games into 2024. But you can kind of see here a similar trajectory of ups and downs and no sustained success over long periods of time. In terms of off the field, how about fan movements in Oakland and I say Tampa Bay, but specifically St. Pete? In Oakland, fans had been upset about the legislative process in the state of Nevada and how quickly the A's went from rooted in Oakland to parallel paths to turning all of their attention and focus to Southern Nevada. So they put on the reverse boycott. In fact, that game was against the Tampa Bay Rays in June of 2023. Oakland fans have the sell shirts and all the signs at the ballpark and the chants and their own fans fest for 3 straight years now every offseason, and showing up at road games and having other teams join in on the movement to try and spread the word, spread the message to help keep the A's in Oakland. The A's fan base in Oakland, very active, like very vocal, trying to make their point, trying to share their point. In Tampa Bay, and I'm not being disrespectful here, I promise you that, there's just not even a comparison here. There's been nothing notable in terms of fan groups, fan movements, fans expressing themselves to any large degree. Sure, there are the negative comments here and there, and a large part of that is when Randy Arozarena got traded. All right, that's the outburst, but there hasn't been much more than that, and maybe it's because the Rays have never really gone out and said, well, Orlando is a parallel path. And obviously the Rays team has not been threatened to move or go anywhere or change locations. In fact, the reported pressure of sale of the franchise, that actually kind of affirms that, if anything, all the other owners in the league want the Rays to stay in the Tampa region instead of go anywhere else. But again, nothing notable from the Rays fan base as compared to pretty much everything notable from A's fans in Oakland and the East Bay. All right, playoff support, and maybe this is too specific of a comparison. Maybe people will say this is not fair, but I do want to point this out. The last A's home playoff game, with an asterisk there, and I have to put that because the A's did play home playoff games in the year 2020, but fans were not allowed to attend. So the last A's home playoff game where fans were allowed, it was also against the Rays. Interesting how these two teams, their histories kind of collide here. October 2nd, 2019, I was there. It was the A's second straight wild card game in a row. They lost that game. That was the old format. It was a one-game in or out situation. But 54,000 plus fans showed up at the Coliseum. And I don't even remember the official capacity. I think they took off the tarps and they made sure that the upper deck was able to be sold. 54,005 fans for the A's final home playoff game with fans in attendance back in 2019. Now, again, fair or not, I just have to do this comparison because I thought this was a bad showing by Rays fans. And look, I want the Rays to stay in St. Pete or in Tampa or just in the region. I do not want the Tampa Bay region to lose the Rays. Be very clear about how I feel regarding those terms. But the last Rays home playoff games, now this was a playoff series, October 3rd and 4th, they got swept by the Rangers in 2023, both games at Tropicana Field. Game 1 drew 19,704. Game 2 drew 20,198. Now this is Tropicana Field with an overall capacity of 42,000 plus, almost 43 grand. And they've narrowed it down by closing off the top deck, so they've made the new capacity of 25,025. And even still, they were at best about 5,000 shy of maximum capacity in those two games, 5,000 to 6,000 short. And that was the announced attendance. If you go back and look at the visuals of fans in the stands, look just the two games side by side. At the Coliseum in 2019, there was not an empty seat. In 2023, that series against Texas, there were tons of seats. And they were both early starts, local time, 3, 4, 5 o'clock first pitch. Unfortunate start times for those games in both situations. Man, it was not a good showing. And again, that's not a knock against Tampa fans overall. I'm just saying, in this comparison, look at the level of commitment when it mattered most. Both teams came out with their own stadium proposals. The A's in 2021 had Howard Terminal voted on by the city of Oakland. The city approved it, but they also changed the terms of how this would go and the infrastructure tax district and the funding and the financing. They basically took what the A's had presented, remixed it, and then approved their own remix and handed it back to the A's. So that's how it kind of worked in Oakland. And there is more to that story. We'll talk about public funding in both of these two places in just a second. But then the Rays came out with this rendering and this proposal. This is the gas plant district site. This is exactly where Tropicana Field is located right now, 60 plus acres. Similar sizes here. Howard Terminal was, I think, 56. This one here in Florida is 65, so comparable. The A's wanted to do that entire project, it seemed like all in one swoop, all in one phase. Would have been difficult, maybe even unrealistic. The Rays wanted a multitude of things here on this site, but obviously a big part of that would be taking down Tropicana Field. So it would have had to have been done in phases. The A's wanted initially to get this done, is it by 2023? And then it kept getting pushed back. And the Rays wanted this initially for 2028. I think we can all understand that's not happening at this point, even if it all got signed off tomorrow. But the Rays ultimately got all of this approved by the city and the county. Now, again, it happened 2 months later than they would have liked. The Rays would have wanted this approved in October of 2023. Turns out it was only approved in December of 2023. But all the same terms that the Rays wanted, they got for that stadium and that deal. In terms of public subsidies, now, this is where we get into a little bit of the apples and oranges of this situation. But the bottom line is, out here in California, where public money for sports stadiums is nearly impossible to come by, $500 million of state and federal grants got secured for infrastructure surrounding Howard Terminal. This is something that somebody was going to have to pay for, either the A's or the city or the county, but City of Oakland went out and secured $500 million for the A's project, which was also a number that kept going up. Initially, it was in the 200s, and then the 300s, and then the 400s. And it's about $500 million because the A's kind of started backing out as Oakland was still gathering more state and federal grants. Now, Oakland did not want to pay for this at all by themselves or at all or with Alameda County, so they went out and secured this in other places. I mean, for all the knocks against Oakland, and there are some legitimate knocks against Oakland in not being able to retain this team, this is one thing you can't fault them on. They went out and got $500 million from other places to give to this project. And the good thing is, even though the project not happening anymore, they have kept this money. They will get to use this money to upgrade the infrastructure around Howard Terminal no matter what. But down in Florida, $600 million were secured in late December by Pinellas County to the tune of $312 million, and the city of St. Petersburg, $287 million. All got approved, all got voted yes. Largely, it was thought because the city and the county both knew that the Rays were not interested anymore. The Rays said, well, we don't know if we can afford this anymore. And the city and county said, well, we don't want to lose our team, and we're okay with this deal. So we're actually going to pull you, the Rays who proposed this, back into the deal. They were almost calling the Rays bluff. A $600 million bluff, the city and county. And look, they probably wanted the deal no matter what. They didn't want to lose their team. So they approved this because they knew that the Rays were edging out of it. And now, because they approved it, it might be ultimately what puts the pressure on the Rays by Major League Baseball and the owners to say, hey, as a team, like this is what teams try and get, and now this is on the table for you, and you're walking away from it. Maybe that is where the tipping point of the pressure from baseball has come. Similar situations though, right? Like hundreds of millions of dollars, $500 and $600 million, both on the table for teams to do their respective projects. Both of these teams, I say, had and still have regional backups. For the A's, it was an idea maybe to always go to Sacramento. Now, the other idea for the A's would have been if your top minor league affiliate is in Las Vegas and you want to share a ballpark with somebody, you're going to have to do that anyway with a minor league team, and their ballpark is newer. It's also in Las Vegas. It would allow you to start building your team headquarters down there. Just do one move to Las Vegas. Why not do that? We still don't exactly have the definitive answer on that. Instead, they're going 90 minutes away to Sutter Health Park in the state capital, Sacramento. It's been home to the AAA River Cats for a very long time. In fact, to the point where the River Cats used to be the A's AAA affiliate. And then, 15 years ago, they switched over to being the Giants AAA affiliate. And ownership of the River Cats and Sutter Health Park, it's the Sacramento Kings owner, Vivek Ranadive. He has offered up not only the stadium free of charge, but also Sacramento Kings employees free of charge to help work with the A's and marketing and promotions and all that stuff from a business side in Sacramento. So the A's had this backup 90 minutes up the road. In fact, you know what's crazy? Northeast up the road. In Tampa, 90 minutes northeast, basically, up the road, is Orlando, Florida. There's the ESPN Disney complex with the stadium that's been used on and off over the years for, I think, the Atlanta had it for spring training for a while. There were some minor league teams that jumped in and out, but largely right now, that stadium is available on a pretty regular basis. Now, it only seats about 8,000, I want to say, but this stadium at the Disney complex, the Wide World of Sports complex, largely expandable, largely doable. I mean, this is Disney, this is ESPN, this is something that could easily accommodate and facilitate, maybe even easier than Sacramento, right? Because they've upkept this, they've added to it. This one is more of a blank canvas and more doable, I think, than even Sacramento was in transforming a minor league ballpark to a major league ballpark. But nonetheless, right? And the Rays are playing in a minor league ballpark in Tampa this year. You've got two teams. I didn't even put this in the comparison. Two teams about to play their full season, and I say seasons, probably plural for Tampa, definitely for the A's, in minor league ballparks. The point is here, though, a short drive away, they've got another option, right? So it's not like they've got to change states. It's not like they've got to go half a country away, change divisions. Oh, no. They've got, within 90 minutes, both of these teams had other people to talk to. And I'm thinking that this entire time, as now the Rays have been pressured to be sold, reportedly, by baseball and its owners, maybe they were in higher level talks with Orlando and still are than anybody knows about. In terms of moving to Orlando, having an ownership group out there buy into the team, getting a new stadium easier in Orlando than somewhere else. So regional backups, definitely a comparison between these two teams. How about ownership tenure? Now, this one's very similar in terms of when the two owners respectively got in. John Fisher of the A's was part of a group purchase with Lou Wolff back in 2005. Lou Wolff was more of the primary owner back then, the majority owner back then. April of 2005, it's a $180 million sale price to buy the Oakland A's. John Fisher buys out Lou Wolff, becomes the managing partner in 2016, and the Forbes valuation of the A's franchise as of, I think it was March of last year, about a year ago, 2024, $1.2 billion. Stuart Sternberg, he has been the majority owner, not the only owner, but the majority owner of the Rays since October 2005. Same year, these two individuals basically joined ownership groups and then became the majority owners of their respective teams. October of 2005, Stuart Sternberg, he purchased 48%, so there are two other interests, but Sternberg has the majority at 48. I think there's 30-something and at 12 or 15% other ownership. But he bought in for $65 million. That gets him 48% back in 2005. So similar sale price, a lesser sale price in 2005. But the Forbes valuation now of the Rays here in, March of 2024, $1.25 billion, also something comparable. You can see here, right, that in either case, if either one of these individuals were really going to sell as either demanded by fans or demanded and pressured by Major League Baseball, they're going to do just fine on selling this team at a hefty gain, right? There is no loss here. There is no drawbacks here of, well, you just don't own the team anymore, but your bank account is looking quite substantial in either case. But it also goes to show you that both of these teams, for the better part of their ownerships, their ownership tenures, both these teams have been looking for new stadium projects basically unsuccessfully to this point. We'll see what the next year brings, especially in Las Vegas, and maybe what the next year brings of promises in Florida. But to this point, both teams and both ownerships for a very long time have been unsuccessfully able to land and build new stadiums. Other teams in that same time period, have the Rangers built 3 stadiums in that time period? I'm kidding. It feels like that, but you understand my point. The state government has had intervention in Florida, and to our knowledge publicly, there's been no known meetings between Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, and California Governor Gavin Newsom. I mean, there is documented meetings in the past about COVID stuff and wildfire stuff, but in terms of meeting about teams moving away, no. In the state of Nevada, their governor, Joe Lombardo, he was very much part of the process. He called the special session in the state of Nevada to try and secure public funding for the A's to ultimately move to Las Vegas. That was the governor of Nevada which did that. The governor of California, and there are multiple teams in this state, as far as we know, there was no direct contact between the governor and the commissioner of baseball. However, there was documented contact between Rob Manfred, who actually traveled on his way to Texas in the winter meetings in Dallas of late 2024, made a stop in Florida specifically to meet with leadership in St. Pete and Pinellas County, and also the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. That happened December 7th, 2024. So Rob Manfred specifically going to the meeting in Florida, and to our understanding, and unless we know this publicly any different, it's just not documented anywhere, no known meetings between the California governor and Major League Baseball's commissioner. So now we get to, 20 plus minutes into this video, some takeaways here. As I basically said from the start, nothing is identical. You can't say that the A's and Rays are the exact same situation. They're not. How could they ever be? In terms of timelines or details or anything like that. But in overall judging these two situations, if you're stacking up the amount of comparisons and things that are similar versus things that are different, there's a lot more similarities than there are differences here. You could say they're similar and a lot more similar than different. And maybe, my third takeaway here, maybe because the Oakland situation happened first, can we say that baseball learned something from the Oakland deal and the way that it happened, and unanimously approving relocation and waiving a relocation fee and all the backlash from the fans and maybe the public perception? Can you say that, well, now baseball's looking at Tampa and saying, we can't do that again? Is there something to that? Possibly. We don't know. Or are these viewed totally differently because of one reason or another? The one other thing that these two teams have had in common now for quite some time, and I don't know that baseball's ready to expand like tomorrow or right around the corner. At one point, though, in the late 2010s, they were. They were itching for expansion and expansion fees, but the A's and Rays and their uncertainty were in the way of expansion. And the commissioner said for a very long time, as soon as we get these two teams sorted out, we're going to expand. Well, I don't know that that's going to happen anymore. But also these two teams have been kind of pressured along by other baseball franchises in the league to say, okay, hurry up, get this done so we can get our expansion fees. Hurry up, we want to expand. Both have been in the way of expansion. I wonder if the Oakland situation was just kind of forced through, like, hey, we don't care how it gets done, just get it done, get to a resolution, move on as quickly as possible. Is that kind of happening here in Florida? They see, owners across the league see that getting the Rays just settled. If this is done, this is the quickest way to get something done. That's what matters most. The quickness, not the right thing to do. Staying is obviously the right thing, and quickness in this case might be staying in St. Petersburg or in the Tampa region. Do you understand my point? Like, is the priority here to rush and get this done rather than do the right thing for Major League Baseball? So, the same or not? I'm going to say yes, similar. Not the same, not identical, but a similar situation between the A's and Rays. You let me know. Did I miss anything down below? Let me know in the comments section. Am I close on some things? Am I spot on some things? Am I far off on some things? Love to hear your feedback. Also, thumbs up down there. That'll greatly help me and this video and this channel. And don't forget to also hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you right back here next time.